Welcome to Twisted Truths, where betrayal meets brutal payback, and where the most unexpected twists expose what people are really capable of. This story isn't just shocking, it's personal. My name is Morris, and I'm 39 years old. Before everything blew up, I was a senior compliance officer at Harrington Pace Publishing in Boston. 9 years. 9 years of consistent results, clean audits, and keeping this company's name out of federal headlines. I didn't climb the ladder by playing politics. I did it by working late, triple-checking the details, and staying out of trouble. Until trouble started coming to me, dressed in a pencil skirt and a silk blouse. Her name was Lana Prescott. Harvard-educated, fiercely polished, with a reputation that made the board sit up straighter when she walked into the room. She was brought in to modernize operations and reinvigorate culture. I thought it was just the usual fluff executives love to throw around. I didn't realize I was her next project. The first few weeks were fine. She was sharp, asked the right questions, made intelligent comments, and genuinely seemed interested in how the compliance team ran. I wanted to believe she was the real deal. Someone who'd help us tighten up processes without bulldozing everything in her path. Then things got strange. At first, it was just compliments. "That color looks great on you, Morris," during a team briefing. I laughed it off. Then it became more direct. "Do you work out? You've got a presence. You must be hard to say no to." I kept it professional. Redirected the conversation. Smiled when I had to. She was still my boss. But when the workday ended, the texts began. "Still thinking about your comment in the meeting today. You're sharp." Then, "Running tonight. Wish I had someone to pace me." Followed by a photo of her in tight running gear, captioned, "Even compliance officers need to breathe, right?" I didn't respond. The turning point came on a Tuesday night. "Come by my place Thursday. I want to go over your performance privately." That was the message that sat on my phone like a lit fuse. My blood ran cold. There was no mistaking it anymore. She wasn't just being friendly. She was testing boundaries, and I'd finally reached the edge of the cliff. I wrote back carefully. "Thank you, but I prefer to keep all performance reviews during regular business hours and inside the office." Her reply came in less than 2 minutes. "I think you misunderstood my invitation, Morris. This is about your growth. Don't blow it." That was the moment I knew, I wasn't dealing with a leader. I was dealing with a predator. Thursday came and went. I didn't show up. She didn't mention it publicly, but the air was colder than January in Boston. The next day in the meeting room, she didn't look at me once. She passed over me during discussions. Wouldn't even acknowledge my audit updates. I had spent nearly a decade building my name at Harrington Pace. I survived 3 department shakeups, 2 mergers, and a dozen C-level turnovers. I wasn't some intern she could steamroll. And yet, as I sat in that cold boardroom, I could feel it happening. My silence wasn't protecting me anymore. It was making me the perfect target. The following Monday, the email came. Subject line, Department Realignment Discussion, 10 a.m. Conference Room B. From Lana. It wasn't our regular meeting time. It wasn't our regular room. I knew. I walked in that morning and saw the stack of papers in her hand, the HR rep beside her, and the legal compliance director pretending to be interested in his tablet. I didn't need to hear the words. But she said them anyway. Slowly. Like she was savoring them. Effective immediately, we're restructuring the compliance unit to focus more heavily on digital publishing regulations. Your role as senior compliance officer is no longer aligned with this direction. Your last day will be this Friday. 9 years of work. Gone in 5 sentences. I sat still, letting the silence stretch like an open wound. I could see Derek out of the corner of my eye, his mouth slightly open, disbelief written across his face. Patricia from Risk Management stared at her notebook like it could save her. Nobody spoke. So I did. Will there be a transition period? I asked, my voice calm. Too calm. Lana smiled. A week should be sufficient. HR will handle the paperwork. I stood, shook her hand like a man at his own funeral, and thanked her. My hand was steady. My mind wasn't. That walk back to my office felt like miles. My inbox was already disabled. My ID card was demagnetized. The message was clear, get out, and get out quietly. But I couldn't go quietly. Not after what she'd done. That evening, I sat in my apartment, surrounded by the wreckage of 9 years, boxes of documents, project files, performance reviews, even thank you notes from executives who now pretended they didn't know me. My hands shook as I opened my phone. There they were. 6 months of text messages from Lana. Friendly at first. Then personal. Then deeply inappropriate. I had screenshots. I had timestamps. I had a record. But what good was truth without proof? I stared out the window, across the Boston skyline, and I'll be honest, I felt hollow. Angry, yes. But mostly, betrayed. Not just by Lana. By the entire system. By the silence of my coworkers. By the fact that I could be erased so easily by someone who smiled while doing it. I thought of my dad, how he'd worked a blue-collar job for 40 years and still believed in loyalty. How he used to say, if you do good work and keep your nose clean, you'll be fine. I had done good work. I had kept my nose clean. But Lana didn't care about clean. She cared about control. And when I denied her that, she wiped me out. The worst part? She did it so smoothly, it almost looked legitimate. Almost. I didn't sleep that night. I didn't eat. I didn't cry. I just stared at the ceiling and listened to the soft buzz of my phone every time another coworker failed to text, failed to check in, failed to ask if I was okay. And that's when I knew, I was on my own. But I wasn't done. Not by a long shot. The morning after my termination, I scheduled a meeting with Helen Chang, the Director of Human Resources. Helen had been at Harrington Pace for years. She wasn't warm, but she was fair. If there was anyone inside the system who might still believe in facts over whispers, it was her. She blinked twice when I stepped into her office. Morris. I was surprised by the restructuring news. I nodded. I need to talk to you. And I need you to hear me out fully before forming any conclusions. I laid it out calmly. Fact by fact. The compliments. The texts. The apartment invitation. I showed her the messages, carefully organized and time-stamped. I made no accusations, only presented the context. Helen leaned forward, her voice cautious but concerned. Do you have all of this documented? Everything, I said. Screenshots, timelines, saved emails. I didn't think I'd need them. I hoped I wouldn't. But here we are. She nodded slowly, eyes scanning the screen of my phone. Let's schedule a full review Thursday afternoon. Bring everything you have. For the first time in days, I felt the tiniest flicker of hope. That flicker died the next morning. When I arrived at the office, my login credentials were disabled. My email account was deleted. A security guard stood at my desk. And Derek, my friend of 4 years, looked like he'd seen a ghost. He pulled me aside. Lana called an emergency meeting yesterday. Said you made advances during a performance review. That she turned you down, and you retaliated. She's calling your termination mutual to protect the company from liability. My heart didn't race. It dropped. I wasn't just fired. She had flipped the entire story on its head. Now I wasn't the victim. I was the predator. You know that's not true, Derek, I said, my voice dry. He looked at me, guilt swarming behind his eyes. I want to believe you, man. I do. But she had dates, details. She seemed scared. Scared? I was the one with nothing left. No job. No voice. No allies. But she was scared. I went straight to Helen's office. She wouldn't even let me sit down. Given the recent allegations, we're expediting your departure. You'll be escorted out today. No further internal meetings are appropriate. Allegations? I said quietly. You saw the proof. Her expression shifted to corporate blankness. This is a sensitive matter. Please gather your belongings. Security walked me out 20 minutes later. No one looked at me. No one spoke. And that's when it hit me, I hadn't just been fired. I had been framed. That night, I laid out every document I had, performance reviews, company emails, text exchanges. It was all there. But something wasn't connecting. Why did she go this far? Why risk fabricating something that could backfire? Then I remembered a conversation from 6 months ago. Derek had mentioned that Lana had asked questions about my background during a leadership roundtable, where I'd worked before, what projects I'd led, if I had family in Boston. At the time, I assumed it was curiosity. Now I saw it for what it really was, targeting. She'd been calculating. This wasn't impulse. It was pattern. And patterns leave trails. I picked up the phone and called Jennifer Walsh, a former colleague who had left the company shortly after our last director, Janet Morrison, retired. Morris, she said, her voice thick with concern, I heard. I didn't believe it. What really happened? I told her everything. Every uncomfortable message. Every evasion. Every lie. When I finished, she went quiet. Then she said something that changed everything. This isn't the first time she's done this. Silence. What? I asked. Lana. She was at Meridian Financial before Harrington Pace. A friend of mine works there. There was a situation, almost identical. A male subordinate. Personal boundaries crossed. Then boom, he's gone, and she stays clean. It was settled privately. NDA. No official record. My stomach turned. You're telling me this is a habit? A pattern, she corrected. And if you can prove it's not just you, this becomes something no company wants on their hands. Suddenly, the fog lifted. This wasn't about me being unlucky. It was about me being next. I opened my laptop, pulled up her LinkedIn profile, and started digging. For companies in 8 years. All lateral moves. All without promotions. That's not ambition. That's evasion. People like Lana don't stop unless someone makes them. And that night, I stopped being a victim. I started building a case. I didn't sleep. I didn't need to. Rage has a way of keeping you wide awake. I sat at my dining table under the soft hum of a dying overhead light, surrounded by every paper trail I could dig up. Her texts. My performance reviews. My termination notice. And my now dead corporate email, exported just in time from an old Outlook sync. I knew what I had. But more importantly, I knew what I didn't. A pattern means nothing unless you prove it happened more than once. So I went hunting. The first breadcrumb came from Jennifer, the friend who told me about Lana's prior scandal at Meridian Financial. I asked her if her contact might be willing to talk. Don't expect anything official, Jennifer warned. But I'll reach out quietly. 2 days later, I got a text from an unknown number. Heard about your situation. We should talk. Alex Peterson. Alex was a former colleague, someone I vaguely remembered from a few years ago. He'd left just before Lana joined Harrington Pace. We met at a nondescript cafe in Cambridge. His opening words hit like a freight train. I left because I knew she was coming. He sipped his coffee and went on. I worked at Northwick Ventures before this place. Lana was a director there too. Things got messy. A guy named Kevin. Same story. Private messages. Subtle threats. He tried to cut it off, and she flipped the narrative. He got canned. She got promoted. Did he report it? I asked. Alex shook his head. Didn't matter. HR swept it up. She left shortly after, quietly, of course. Golden reference, no complaints on paper. Kevin disappeared. Last I heard, he moved to Oregon and changed fields entirely. That name, Kevin, would change everything. But Alex gave me something even more useful. Beth Sullivan. HR rep at Northwick. She handled the fallout. She's no longer there, but she's the one who saw it all go down. I tracked Beth down like a bloodhound. Took 2 days, 3 different email accounts, and a professional contact database I still had access to through an old audit certification site. Beth agreed to meet. Cautiously. Off the record. We sat in a booth at a roadside diner in Providence. She was nervous, glancing over her shoulder more than once. But her words? Rock solid. Yes. I remember Kevin Torres. I remember Lana. Then she pulled out a manila folder. Her own notes. Copies. Nothing official, but enough to paint a damning picture. Lana initiated. Kevin resisted. Then she reported him. She had saved just enough friendly replies from him to spin it as harassment. She got ahead of the story and twisted it until HR had no choice but to fire them both. I read the notes, and my hands trembled. It was the exact same script. She seduced. She manipulated. She retaliated. Beth leaned in close. She's not sloppy. She plants seeds, texts, phrases, smiles in public, so that when she flips it, everyone already believes it. She builds the story before the story even starts. It was chilling. But it was also exactly what I needed. Would you be willing to provide a written statement? She hesitated. Not publicly. But if this goes legal, and it will, I'll testify under specific protections. I shook her hand, trying to suppress the fire brewing in my chest. I wasn't just angry now. I was armed. That night, I drafted everything, every timeline, every digital trace, every note from Beth and Jennifer. I built a timeline from the day Lana joined Harrington Pace to the day she destroyed my career. Then I hired an attorney. David Kim was known for 2 things, suing Fortune 500 companies and winning. We met in his glass-walled office downtown. I laid it all out, documents, testimonies, and the whole ugly arc. He didn't even blink. You've got enough for a multi-claim suit, wrongful termination, defamation, retaliation, and hostile work environment. Add the pattern of past behavior, and this isn't just a lawsuit, it's a reckoning. We sent a demand letter within 48 hours. To Harrington Pace Legal Department. To the board. And to the EEOC. We gave them 7 days to respond. My demands were clear. Immediate reinstatement. Full back pay. Formal apology. Lana's termination for cause. And compensation for damages to my reputation. David added one more clause. If they refuse, he said with a cold smile, we go nuclear. 3 days later, David's phone rang. It was Harrington Pace's corporate legal department. They didn't even pretend to be caught off guard. They wanted a meeting, soon. Not a phone call. Not a delay. A face-to-face with the board's legal rep, the CEO, and the head of HR. That meant one thing. They were scared. David and I sat across from three company representatives in a conference room I had once walked into with pride. Now, I entered with purpose. The CEO, Ellen Dobbins, opened the meeting stiffly. "We've reviewed your complaint, Mr. Miller. We take these matters very seriously." She glanced at their corporate attorney, who continued. "After conducting an internal investigation based on the evidence and testimonies provided, we found several irregularities in Ms. Prescott's management practices." Helen Chong, the same HR director who escorted me out, sat silent, her lips pressed in a line so tight it could have split steel. Then the CEO dropped the bombshell. "As of this morning, Lana Prescott is no longer employed at Harrington Pace Publishing." I didn't smile. I didn't nod. I waited. David leaned forward. "While that's a necessary first step, it doesn't begin to address the damages done to my client's reputation, mental well-being, and professional standing." The negotiations went on for 2 hours. In the end, they agreed to full reinstatement to my former position, 6 months of back pay, a formal letter of apology signed by the CEO and filed with my employment record, and a 6-figure settlement for emotional and reputational damage. But that wasn't the part that mattered most. The part that truly made my hands steady and my voice calm again. Lana was gone. And I was walking back through the front doors, not as a victim, but as someone who refused to be erased. That Monday morning, I returned to work. My desk was just as I'd left it, except now, people looked at me differently. Some avoided my eyes. Others gave me small, silent nods of respect. Derek waited for me with a sheepish grin. I never believed it, man. I didn't know what to do. I didn't scold him. I'd learned that when predators like Lana move through a workplace, they don't just manipulate their victims, they paralyze everyone around them. That afternoon, Patricia from Risk Management stopped by. "Morris, I owe you an apology." Her voice cracked slightly. I should have said something during that meeting. I knew something felt wrong when she read that termination memo. I nodded, keeping my voice even. We all have moments to act. Some of us do. Some of us don't. But I hope next time, you speak up sooner. Lana's departure was listed as voluntary. No misconduct was disclosed publicly. But the truth? It traveled through the industry like wildfire. Whispers turned to confirmations. I received quiet messages from employees at 2 of Lana's previous employers. They had seen the signs but never had enough to act. One of them was Kevin Torres, the man she destroyed years ago at Northwick Ventures. "Thank you," he said over the phone. "You did what I couldn't." I didn't gloat. I didn't feel triumphant. I just felt whole again. Because sometimes revenge isn't about destruction. It's about restoration. And Lana? She'll never hold a leadership role again. Not with what's now unofficially, but permanently, attached to her name in every hiring conversation. I should have felt satisfied. I had my job back. My name was cleared. Lana was gone. But something still burned. The more I thought about it, the more I realized this wasn't over. Lana hadn't just misused her position, she had refined this behavior across 4 companies. And if I hadn't documented everything? If I hadn't known how to build timelines, cite policy, and leverage people quietly? I'd be just another Kevin. That thought haunted me more than the injustice itself. Because I remembered Kevin's voice on that call. He hadn't just been destroyed professionally, he had been broken personally. And if people like Lana weren't held accountable publicly, they would always find a way to do it again. I couldn't let that happen. So I made a decision. I reached out to Beth Sullivan, the HR rep from Northwick Ventures who had given me her notes. I asked if she'd be willing to join me in filing a formal report to the EEOC and submit our combined documentation. I expected hesitation. Instead, she said, "I've been waiting years for someone to go first. Let's finish this." With David's help, we compiled everything, my case, Kevin's case, and the confidential reports Beth had retained. We filed an official complaint with the EEOC, not just against Lana but against Meridian Financial, Northwick Ventures, and Harrington Pace for fostering an environment that enabled serial retaliation. That's when the twist hit. 2 weeks after the complaint was filed, I received a call. From a journalist. Her name was Nadia Lynn. She had worked on workplace abuse exposés for national outlets. She had somehow heard whispers about the case through legal back channels, and she had more. "Mr. Miller, I've been tracking misconduct allegations against executives in publishing and finance for 2 years. You're not the only one. There are at least 2 other men, one in Chicago, one in Denver, who experienced similar retaliation. And they both named the same woman. Lana. They were silenced with NDAs and pressured into private settlements. And then Nadia said something that froze me in place. One of them tried to take his own life last year. I sat in silence, gripping my phone so tightly I thought it might crack. This wasn't just my fight anymore. I gave Nadia access to the documents, redacted, legal reviewed, but detailed. I connected her to Beth, to Kevin, and to the lawyer who helped me. It wasn't about vengeance now. It was about truth. 2 months later, the article dropped. Front page of a major digital investigative outlet. Pattern of power, how one executive used corporate silence to prey on subordinates for a decade. It exploded. Anonymous quotes. Timeline charts. Screenshots. Legal filings. They didn't name me, but everyone in the industry knew. Lana became radioactive. Job offers vanished. Speaking invitations disappeared. LinkedIn went dark. She went from keynote speaker to corporate pariah overnight. And Harrington Pace? They issued a formal statement of regret and launched a new internal ethics overhaul. The irony? I was named chair of that internal ethics committee 3 weeks later. The same room where Lana once tried to eliminate me. Now I was the one creating policies that would make sure no one like her ever rose unchecked again. 6 months later, I was promoted. Not just reinstated. Not just paid off. Promoted. Director of Compliance. The very title Lana once weaponized, now belonged to me, permanently. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. The same conference room where she blindsided me with a fake restructuring was now the place I led weekly briefings. The same executives who once nodded along to her words now turned to me for judgment calls. Even the company newsletter quoted me once. Integrity isn't just a policy. It's a person refusing to stay quiet when it matters. I still have that issue folded in my top drawer. But it's what came after the article that I'll never forget. One morning, I got an email. Subject line, "Thank you." It was from Kevin Torres. The man Lana nearly erased years ago. I read the article, he wrote. "Beth told me everything. You didn't just get justice, you gave it to people like me who thought it would never come. I lost my job. My dignity. My confidence. But knowing she's finally being exposed. That changed something inside me. I stared at that message for a long time. Then I wrote back 2 words. You're not alone. Because he wasn't. And neither was I. It's been a year now. Lana has vanished from every industry circle. Her digital profile is scrubbed. Her last listed position is marked resigned for personal reasons. But the people who mattered. They know. I've received messages from interns, assistants, junior staff, all thanking me for speaking up. For proving that the system can work, if someone's willing to fight, document, and not back down. Do I hate Lana? No. But I'll never forgive her either. Because what she did wasn't just a betrayal of trust, it was an abuse of power. She took people's careers, dignity, and dreams, and treated them like bargaining chips in her twisted game of control. But in the end, she gambled with the wrong man. She thought silence would protect her. But I learned that truth, when it's documented, shared, and fought for, becomes a blade. And I sharpened mine to the very edge. In the end, truth has a way of surfacing, even if it comes twisted through pain and betrayal. As one wise voice once said, sometimes your greatest enemy was once your closest ally. If this story struck a chord with you, let us know in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe, share, and spread the word, because justice deserves to be heard.